This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Stick around to the end of the video for a special offer they're making available through my channel. Gamers, holy shit, what a week of video game news. This week is basically E3 in all but name, as we have the Disney Marvel Showcase, the Cyberpunk Night City Wire, Ubisoft Forward, and coming in hot off the presses, the announcement of both a Nintendo Direct and a Sony State of Play scheduled for around the same time that this video goes live. If you're wondering why this video is a few hours late today, it's because I was eager to avoid my click-through rate being shreked by Link and Kratos. So what does this mean for this week in video games? It means that similar to Key 3 earlier this year, I'm actually splitting this episode into two parts. Trying to cover all of it in one show would have been madness. So in this part, we're going to cover Disney, Cyberpunk, Ubisoft Forward, and some other news that broke this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be taking a good look at all the big announcements from the Nintendo and Sony showcases, as well as our regularly scheduled look at upcoming releases, review roundups, put this on your radar, and more. I appreciate you being along for the ride in what has turned into one of the biggest weeks in gaming news this year. There's a hell of a lot to get to, so let's get to it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. Here comes the news. Before we settle into showcase overload, what say we check in on that delicious war of words between Jim Ryan of Sony and Phil Spencer of Microsoft. Now, we covered this in great detail during the most recent episode of the Friends Per Second podcast, but for those who missed that, why? Do you not like high-quality podcasting content? Your media diet aside, Jim Ryan is not a happy chappy right now. Microsoft are in the process of buying Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion, and Sony are anxious that the mountains of IP that Microsoft would acquire would suddenly become Xbox exclusive, and if there's one company that understands the potency and market impact of exclusive content, it's Sony. While regulators around the world have been scrutinizing the deal, Sony has been casting aspersions on it through their filings, describing Call of Duty as a title of such sterling quality and one so deeply entrenched in the market that no other company could ever hope to compete with it, whereas Microsoft have been all like, oh, Call of Duty, it's not that good. We're only buying Activision Blizzard so we can secure the rights to Matt Hoffman Pro BMX. They didn't really say that, but I wish they did. Someone needs to bring that franchise back. Last week, Phil Spencer appears to have leaked a letter he sent to Jim Ryan, where he committed to keeping COD multi-platform for, quote, several more years, end quote. That was an unusual move, and it seems to have backfired, as Jim Ryan has used the leak as an excuse to bring their dialogue into the public domain. Ryan told GamesIndustry.biz, quote, I hadn't intended to comment on what I understood to be a private business discussion, but I feel the need to set the record straight because Phil Spencer brought this into the public forum. Microsoft has only offered for Call of Duty to remain on PlayStation for 3 years after the current agreement between Activision and Sony ends. After almost 20 years of Call of Duty on PlayStation, their proposal was inadequate on many levels and failed to take account of the impact on our gamers. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality Call of Duty experience, and Microsoft's proposals undermine this principle, end quote. A rare public broadside, but not an unjustified one if Phil wants to start bringing his correspondence and commitments into the public domain without being specific about them. Several years from Phil was clarified to be 3 years from Jim Ryan. An important distinction given that this would mean the commitment would expire in approximately 2028, roughly the same time that we can expect the next-gen consoles to hit the market. Phil's comments also fly in the face of Microsoft's submission to regulators, where they go to great lengths to argue that they wouldn't make COD an exclusive because it wouldn't make financial sense to do so. Now you've got Phil Spencer saying that they probably would make it an exclusive. Not at all surprising given that Bethesda's catalog is soon to be fully exclusive to Xbox and PC. The flip side to all of this is that it's a little rich for Sony to be complaining about exclusivity. This is a company that firmly locked down the best output from Japan for the better part of 3 decades. Final Fantasy, Yakuza, Bloodborne, Street Fighter, dozens more. And that's just Japan, mind you. Don't even get me started on locking down Spider-Man to the point where the Avengers game got Spider-Man as a playable character on PlayStation consoles only. Obviously, it is a different situation, given that Sony were able to compete for those exclusive deals, whereas Microsoft, using their massive war chest to purchase a publisher outright, removes that competitive playing field altogether. I get that, for sure. But Sony have been surgical with their deals and acquisitions, and they've dealt terminal damage to Xbox last generation by doing so. I mean, put it this way, if the Square Enix acquisition rumors are true, and Sony does end up buying them, do you think we're ever going to see another Final Fantasy game on an Xbox console? I don't think so. So while I am sympathetic to Sony's complaints, it's hard not to see this as them getting a bit of a taste of their own medicine. Microsoft may be taking on the world in its pitch to acquire Activision Blizzard, but let's not forget it's also fighting its own internal battles re Halo. The title hit a major stumbling block last week when it was announced that the next season was delayed into next year and that couch co-op was permanently canned. This led many, myself included, to suggest that something needs to change. 343 have done their best to steward this franchise, but it's clear that they, or at least their leadership, weren't fully up to the task of carrying Halo into the next generation. It seems as though Microsoft's head honchos agree, as this week, 343 industry boss Bonnie Ross announced her resignation from the studio. Quote, "While I had hoped to stay with Halo until we release the winter update, I'm letting you know that I will be leaving 343 and attending to a family medical emergency," end quote. The wording does imply that she was due to exit in around November, but that her exit was hastened by matters in her personal life. Ross has led 343 since its inception, and while many agree that Halo isn't where it should be right now, almost everyone would agree that there are a number of successes to celebrate over the past 14 years, and all of those happened under Ross's watch. She's been a positive force in the industry who treated her staff and her players with respect, and I think the best wishes of most go with her. With her departure, Microsoft is significantly restructuring the 343 leadership team. Pierre Hintz will now lead the studio. He was the person responsible for bringing the Master Chief Collection back from the dead, so many people are happy to see him get this bump. Brian Koski will become Halo's general manager, and Elizabeth Van Wyck will take over as head of business and ops. With this new leadership comes a chance to hit the reset button about the way we talk about Halo. It's clear that Microsoft are willing to make tough choices, and time will tell how well this new leadership team is equipped to get Halo back on track. Speaking of getting major AAA legacy first-person shooters back on track, Battlefield. As down bad as Halo is, it was never as down bad as the shocking state of Battlefield 2042, which launched feature incomplete, broken, and without a single-player campaign to boot. It seems as though EA aren't done with single-player Battlefield though, as this week they announced the formation of a new studio called Ridgeline Games. This one is being led by Marcus Lido, formerly of Bungie. He set up his own studio some time back that put out the ill-fated Disintegration, but when that didn't land well, he returned to the AAA Games fold to help lead some of the Battlefield live service support stuff. This new gig puts him at the head of a studio that is creating a narrative campaign set in the Battlefield universe. It's unclear if this campaign will be a standalone title, or part of 2042, or part of the next Battlefield installment, but I'm gonna guess it's the latter. Absolutely no word yet on when this will drop, but don't expect it anytime soon. One last thing before we jump into the showcases, Callisto Protocol studio boss Glenn Schofield has further walked back his statements regarding crunch. He put out a very tone-deaf tweet last week that implied that he and his people were working through meals, through exhaustion, through COVID, only to then be excoriated by every corner of the internet for promulgating a damaging and thankfully outdated view on what game dev should look like. Speaking to Game On and relayed by Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, Schofield said this, quote, "Schofield said that he doesn't subject my teams to mandatory overtime, but that parts of his staff are working hard for a few weeks as they finish the Callisto Protocol. I've been listening to feedback and I realized that I've had a blind spot when it comes to the unintended consequences of long hours, even when they're optional," he said. "The buck stops with me and I'm using this experience as a catalyst for change," end quote. And you know what? That's a good response. It would be nice if it wasn't necessary at all, but he's facing into it, he's owning it, and he's publicly committing to do better. He's also made that commitment to his staff in an all-hands meeting, so hopefully this does see the situation improve both in this final stretch to launch and in future projects the studio takes up. Alright, that's the drama out the way. Let's get on the hype train and start tackling those showcases this week. Let's start with Disney, who this week held a webinar that they titled The Disney and Marvel Games Showcase. It was hosted by my friend Blessing. He absolutely crushed it, no surprises there. What was a surprise though, was just how many mobile games Disney and Marvel have in their back pocket. The big one that sure to rope in a bunch of people is World of Heroes, which only got a live action teaser showing some people walking around outside. Ew, gross. It makes sense though in the context of the developer, Niantic, makers of Pokemon Go. They were already working on an NBA spin on the Pokemon Go formula, and now it seems you're going to be able to capture and battle various Marvel superheroes. Could be kind of fun, I guess. Marvel Snap got an official release date. This is a collectible card game from a new studio made up by a bunch of Hearthstone veterans. The general buzz around this one was that it played really well, but the monetization was absolutely horrific. That was back at the beta launch though. Since then I've heard that they have made some changes and that things are better. I don't know for sure, but you can of course check it out for yourself. It's free to start. It releases on mobile platforms on October 18th. Here's a mobile game that absolutely no one was asking for. Avatar Reckoning. This isn't the AAA game that Ubisoft are working on. This is some random MMO shooter thing that appears to be some generic shooting game that they slapped the Avatar license on. It has arena shooter PvP in the world of Avatar. Thankfully it's mobile only, so we don't have to care about it. Outside of mobile, we got some sugar for consoles and PC. One thing I was very happy to see is Midnight Suns, the XCOM style game featuring an unusual roster of Marvel heroes. It's from Firaxis, makers of XCOM, and was recently indefinitely delayed, but that appears to have been less indefinite than we were led to believe, as the game is now locked for a December 2nd release date, hitting all platforms but the Switch. That version is still MIA. No word yet on when that arrives. 2K, if you're watching this, please respond to my emails. I would like to review this video game. I've emailed them like 6 times and they haven't responded. I'm starting to get the message, but I thought I'd make one last Hail Mary play here. Wish me luck. Hey, this looks kind of cool. Disney Illusion Island. It's a co-op 2D platformer starring classic Disney heroes Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy. It's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch and it's out sometime next year, TBD. Aliens Dark Descent was revealed during Gamescom opening night live, and we got our first look at actual gameplay here in the Disney showcase. I guess they own Aliens too? I didn't know that, but okay. This is an isometric, real-time, tactics-based shooter, and I'm actually pretty interested in this, to be honest. Most of the Alien games we get are either first or third-person action or horror games, so this is kind of a cool twist. We don't have a release date for this one yet, but it too is hitting sometime in 2023. Something way out of left field but totally awesome is the reveal of TRON Identity. Now, I know when we think TRON, we think speed bikes and laser disc battles, but what if I told you that this was a visual novel from the dude behind Thomas Was Alone? No, I'm not making that up, and if that doesn't pique your interest, then I don't know what to tell you, man. TRON, despite having 2 movies, one of which was scored by Daft Punk, still feels like a very underrated and underutilized IP, and it's nice to see Disney putting it to work in some less than conventional formats. This one is headed to PC first, and you can wishlist it now on Steam. It'll be out sometime next year. Predictably, the house that Mickey built saved the best for last. The rumor mill was churning, saying that Amy Hennig's Skydance New Media was working on a Marvel game, and for once, the rumor mill was correct. This project is a really interesting premise that everyone was immediately down for. Captain America and the Black Panther in a World War II setting fighting Hydra. Hell yes. I don't know who exactly came up with that idea, but if it was Amy Hennig, then she still got the magic touch, clearly. We only got a cinematic teaser for this, but it did hint that Black Panther and Cap won't be the only protagonists, as a Wakandan warrior and an allied spy are visible in the silhouette on the key art. Since this is Amy Hennig, I'm gonna guess this isn't some live service bullshit, just an honest-ass video game about heroes we love, set in a period never before explored in the world of video games. I'm hella into this, I can't wait to see more, though I do expect we'll be waiting some time for it, as no release date was teased. So that was the house that Mickey built. What about the house that Geralt built? This week, CD Projekt Red hosted yet another one of its Night City Wires, their take on the ubiquitous webinar format, and I gotta say, I feel like they're slowly but surely gaining ground in the court of public opinion. While many people will never forget the launch date of Cyberpunk 2077, it definitely feels as though the latest round of announcements was really well received, and I don't think I've ever seen so much positive sentiment surrounding Cyberpunk since, well, before it came out, I guess. The showcase was packed with news. Headlining it is more information about the Edge Runners anime, which is on Netflix now, or it will be in the next few hours. I upload these while I'm asleep, so the first thing I'm doing when I'm waking up is smashing through this season, since all episodes will be available at launch, classic Netflix. Tying into the anime is a major patch dropping for Cyberpunk. The 1.6 update includes some limited Edge Runner content, not a lot, but some. More importantly, it includes a much requested feature, Transmog. Now you can equip the gear you want without having to look like a trash bag hobo. Is it ridiculous that it took 2 years for this basic feature to arrive? Yes, but a lot about this game's launch was ridiculous, so let's not relitigate that here and now. The update is bittersweet because it's the last update for the game for last-gen consoles. The game will still be playable on PS4 and Xbox One and will get minor technical fixes, but future substantive updates will be for current-gen consoles and PC only. Most importantly, it means the upcoming expansion won't be available for last-gen consoles. Is this a bummer? Yes, in the sense that many people are still stuck with last-gen hardware for a variety of reasons, and they won't get to enjoy the expansion as many other people will. On the flip side, This game should never have come out on last-gen consoles. It was wrong for CD Projekt Red to promise that, or for them to build a game that couldn't feasibly run on older hardware. This is a bitter pill to swallow, but it does seem like the right call, especially given the free next-gen upgrade path that CD Projekt Red offers to anyone who purchased Cyberpunk on last-gen consoles. Speaking of expansions, the long-awaited expansion was finally revealed. It's called Phantom Liberty, and it goes a little something like this.
Repeat after me. I, V, do solemnly swear.
I, V, do solemnly swear.
That I shall faithfully serve the new United States of America.
The new United States of America? Shaking my head. I can't believe they made Cyberpunk political. Jokes aside, I am down for some political intrigue. It's a nice new direction to take things, given that the base game was rightly preoccupied with the power of megacorporations, so a deep dive into the political machinations and tensions inherent in Cyberpunk's world is something I suspect I'd be very into. The biggest highlight of this trailer was at the end though, when the voice of Keanu Reeves wafted back into our eardrums.
You know, taking that oath. Bad idea.
Getting voice talent like Keanu back for a DLC, that is not a thing that anyone would have expected, and to be honest, it's awesome to see him back. It shows his commitment to this franchise and world, just as it shows CD Projekt Red's, because Keanu would not have been cheap. Along with the announcement of this expansion comes confirmation that it will be the only expansion for the game. This flies in the face of previous statements from CD Projekt Red, who had previously said that multiple expansions were planned. Obviously, one or two things didn't quite go to plan with the launch of Cyberpunk, so evidently the plan changed to fix the fucking game rather than to churn out more DLC. Let's hope that this DLC bangs because it is the only one we are gonna get. But it's certainly not the last we'll see of Cyberpunk, because CD Projekt Red all but confirmed their sequel aspirations this week. CD Projekt Red's CEO Adam Kaczynski was doing a Q&A session with investors this week when he said this, quote, "I would like to emphasize that we want to further develop Cyberpunk's IP. We have invested a lot of time and effort to build this brand, and we definitely intend to develop it further," end quote. Now, given that they've confirmed only one expansion, and given the fact that this video game is still basically the #1 SEO tag across the entire core gaming segment, and given that CD Projekt Red have announced a partnership with Unreal to utilize Unreal Engine 5 and collaborate on future open world games, it doesn't take a genius to come to the conclusion that CD Projekt Red have sequels in their eyes when they look at Cyberpunk. This is on top of the fact that CD Projekt Red have confirmed their intention to be a multi-project studio going forward, meaning that work on a Cyberpunk sequel can and almost certainly will happen alongside the development of the announced Witcher sequel. A Cyberpunk 2078 is likely many years away, but you can bet your bottom dollar that it's coming. It's not just Cyberpunk sequels though, it's more Witcher sequels. This week, CD Projekt Red confirmed that the upcoming Witcher game will be the first in a new Witcher saga. To again quote Adam Kaczynski, speaking to his investors, quote, "We have in mind more than one. The first saga was 3 games, so now we are thinking about more than one game, but we are in pre-production for the first game for the second Witcher saga," end quote. So there you have it. Cyberpunk and The Witcher both have big futures ahead. Unreal Engine 5, multiple games, TV shows, the works. And with the black eye CD Projekt Red were dealt with the launch of Cyberpunk, let's hope that future is built on better treatment for their workers and a better finished product for us. I'm willing to give them a shot. We'll find out if other people are as well. Okay, 2 showcases down, 1 more to go, at least in this episode. Blockchain developer Ubisoft are up next. They hosted their long-heralded Ubi Forward this week, providing an update on their broad portfolio of titles with a very, very deep dive into the future of Assassin's Creed at the back end. Let's tick off some of the smaller items first. Ubisoft announced new content and updates for a number of live service titles, including For Honor, The Crew 2, Brawlhalla, and Riders Republic. If you are still playing any of those games, then you can expect new stuff coming along at some point. Can I just say it's kind of cool to see Ubisoft has stuck with For Honor for this long. That was a really cool, innovative title, and I'm glad to know its loyal community is still being serviced in some way. The Division 2 has historically not received the same level of post-launch support. After launching spectacularly well, Massive kind of just moved on to other things. Their Avatar game and their Star Wars project, I guess, leaving the Division 2 to languish. That has changed recently though, as the studio has recommitted to the future of the title, providing major content updates, promising more in the future, and promising at least another full year of content and support in Year 5. I still speak to some of the folks at Massive, and they tell me that the player base is still there. There's an audience to justify the continued existence and support of the title, so it's nice to see Ubisoft putting some money behind this. That isn't the only Division thing we're getting though. The recently announced mobile game got a brief trailer here focused on the Dark Zone, As before, I'm interested in this, but I'm holding fire until we know exactly how this game is going to be monetized. After Diablo Immortal, once bitten, twice shy. The Division Heartland also got a brief look in, a little too brief if you ask me. This has been in closed public testing for a long ass time, and I would have expected that we'd see a gameplay deep dive here. Instead, all we got was a sizzle reel and no real details on what this is. It's still widely understood to be an updated version of the survival game mode from the first Division, which is a battle royale and extraction game before battle royale and extraction games existed. Seriously, it predates PUBG, and it's funny to imagine a world where Ubisoft understood just how far ahead of the curve they were with this game mode. Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope got a gameplay trailer as well as confirmation of future DLC, including a Rayman DLC. Not gonna lie, I love that. Yet another reason why Mario Rabbids is basically the best Ubisoft franchise at this point. Skull and Bones got another showing. If you enable the subtitles in this section, you got some more info on ship customization, including weapons, ammo, and armor. Yeah, this is still coming, I guess. And this week it was confirmed to be a $70 title, so good luck with that, Ubisoft. TRACKMANIA has been on PC for a while now, and it's done well for itself. It's finally making its way to consoles in 2023, where it will be free to play. And with hundreds of thousands of community-made tracks already in the mix, this will be a meaty offering worth checking out if you haven't yet. The last bit of pre-Assassin's Creed news is that Ubisoft are getting into bed with Netflix. Let's hope it's consensual, because, you know, Ubisoft. In addition to an Assassin's Creed live-action TV series exclusive to Netflix, we can also expect some video games exclusive to Netflix's mobile storefront. Valiant Hearts 2 is coming, and it's going to be a Netflix exclusive mobile game. Not sure how I feel about that, to be honest, but I'm willing to extend the benefit of the doubt because apparently it's being made by the same team who made the first game, so that's encouraging. There's an action RPG roguelite thing called Mighty Quest that's also coming, as is a Netflix exclusive Assassin's Creed mobile game, but that's not the big Project Jade mobile game we'll discuss shortly. So yeah, a lot of Ubisoft stuff coming to Netflix, and all of it is on mobile. Alright, time for the big Assassin's Creed block. Gotta say, a lot of this took me by surprise. Some of these projects had earlier leaked, but some of them had not, and the overall presentation really left me feeling better about the Assassin's Creed franchise than I have in a long time. So they opened with the official reveal of Assassin's Creed Mirage. This was earlier announced with some key art after being leaked to high heaven. It turns out that all of the leaks were correct. This is a standalone title set in Baghdad about 20 years before the events of Valhalla. It stars Basim, who starts out as a street urchin before being swept up and into the Order of Assassins. It's not a sprawling open-world RPG that will take you 500 hours to complete. It's set in one city, and it's 20-ish hours long, and it's $50, and it's focused on stealth, assassinations, and parkour. My god, can you believe it? Ubisoft are making an actual Assassin's Creed game again. I never thought I'd see the day. Personal highlight for me, one of the main characters is being voiced by Shora Aghdashloo. She is incredible in everything she does, from Destiny to The Expanse and beyond. She is so fucking cool, and I'm already way more into Mirage for knowing that she's a part of it. But yeah, it must be said, no gameplay was shown. What the fuck, Ubisoft? This game is out early next year, which means it's done now, and it's in its polish and bug testing phase. They could have shown it, but they didn't, and that's super lame. They're taking pre-orders for it, despite the fact that no one has seen a single frame of gameplay. That's kind of unsurprising for most AAA publishers these days. Mirage apparently got its start as a DLC for Valhalla that bloomed into a standalone game. Valhalla has had plenty of updates and DLC, but it appears as though Ubisoft are ready to move on from it. The game will get one final update very soon called the Final Chapter DLC. It's a free update that's meant to provide some finality to the story of Ivar. Given how Vikings like to end things, I'm expecting a return to the golden halls of Valhalla, but we'll see, I guess. Next up was the reveal of that major Assassin's Creed mobile game. This one is called Project Jade, and it's set in China. Quite a few people bummed to hear this because the Chinese setting has been long requested, and to know it'll be realized only in the mobile format is less cool than it being a mainline entry running on consoles and PC. Still, the in-engine trailer looked impressive enough for mobile visuals, though you always need to take this sort of stuff with a grain of salt. Highlight here is the ability to create your own character. The very first time you've been able to do that across the Assassin's Creed franchise. As with every other mobile title, I'm interested, but I'm also assuming the absolute worst in terms of monetization, so I'll wait to see how that shakes out before getting excited. With all the foreplay out of the way, it was time for the money shot. Finally, after literally years of begging and months of leaks, Ubisoft have confirmed the existence of Assassin's Creed codename Red, the Assassin's Creed that takes us to the era and place of feudal Japan. Consistent with the rest of the showcase, no actual gameplay was shown, just a pre-rendered clip of a ninja doing ninja things. Ubisoft did say that Codename Red will allow you to live out a shinobi fantasy, which is something that in and of itself sets it apart from Ghost of Tsushima, since that was largely centered on the samurai tradition. This title will likely be the big, sprawling, open-world RPG that the more recent Assassin's Creed games have been, so set aside a good 300 hours or so, not including the DLC, and don't forget to buy the XP boosters, available 1 week after the review embargo expires. I'm half joking, I'm not a fan of the way Ubisoft makes these new AC games. I think they're fine for 20 to 30 hours, but after that they wear out their welcome because their core elements, their combat, exploration, and writing aren't durable enough to withstand that sort of prolonged exposure. My hope is that they change things up a bit here, but given how unbelievably successful Valhalla has been for Ubisoft, I very much doubt it. The change I'm looking for is more likely to come from this next announcement. This is the one that I really liked and got me feeling all the really good feels. Codename HEXE is set during the era of the witch trials. It's not exactly clear where and when yet, but the whole burn the witch phase of history is distinctly European and distinctly dark. It's a great setup for an Assassin's Creed template, as you can imagine all sorts of dark factions working against each other in a time when religion and the fear of the occult were weaponized as tools of persecution. The thing that got me most interested in this announcement was that it's being led by Clint Hocking of Far Cry 2 and Watch Dogs Legion fame, and I know that Legion wasn't the most well-received game ever, but it was very clever. There are a lot of interesting ideas under the hood, even if they didn't come together as well as they might have. Ubisoft has said this is not the big open world RPG format, they're describing it as something different, and yeah, if you're putting Clint Hocking in charge of it, you probably are looking for something different. I really like this angle, and if Ubisoft can maintain a sort of parallel development track for Assassin's Creed, where it's making both open world RPGs and more linear stealth focused games, then I think that's a great approach that's likely to please both new and returning fans of the franchise. Oh, and they're bringing back AC multiplayer. No details on it yet, but Ubisoft have said that they're exploring ways to bring back standalone multiplayer experiences tied to Ubisoft Infinity, which it turns out isn't a game per se, it's more a hub that connects different experiences, though that description is hella vague, so we still don't know much about what's going on there. And that was the Ubisoft showcase for 2022, and it sort of marks the halfway point for this crazy week of news, because tomorrow we have Nintendo and Sony, and this weekend we have Xbox doing things at the Tokyo Game Show. As I've said earlier, I'll be doing a special bumper episode tomorrow to cover everything that I didn't get time for today, so if you're keen on that, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll know when that video is live. If you happen to have enjoyed this video, then you know, give that like button a good old rub. Yeah, boy. Thanks always for stopping by, and a big thanks to this week's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Don't you just hate it when some big TV show is premiering on a streaming service and you renew your subscription, log in, search around for it, only to then discover that it's not available in your region? Believe me, this is a pain that we in Australia know all too well, since a ridiculous amount of content is geo-blocked for us, and that really sucks. Enter Surfshark VPN, the best means of sidestepping all that geo-block nonsense, so you can watch whatever the hell you want, wherever the hell you damn please. In just a few simple clicks, Surfshark lets you connect to their global network of nodes. So in one moment you're in Sydney, and the next you're in London, and the next you're in Delaware, for some reason. Point is, Surfshark lets you enjoy TVs, movies, and games without having to worry about geo-blocking, and depending on where you live, that's a pretty big deal. That's not all though. Surfshark VPN is also the best means of protecting your online data. Your passwords, your IP addresses, your personal information. Surfshark VPN encrypts your online data, protecting it from identity thefts and hacks, and their clean web feature automatically blocks over 1 million known malicious websites, phishing methods, and other threats. In 2022, we can't just trust every website we're shopping on to keep our data safe. We have to take our own steps to protect our data, otherwise these sorts of hacks and scams are inevitable. You can use Surfshark on multiple devices at once, which is something that almost no other VPN allows for. It's available on pretty much every platform you can think of. It has 24/7 customer support, and it also has a full 30-day money-back guarantee. Best of all, they're offering a special discount to viewers of this channel, giving you a massive 83% discount and 3 months free when you use offer code SKILLUP at checkout. Click the link in the description below or visit surfshark.deals/skillup. Thanks Surfshark for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.